Then we are going to the arteriole. The arteriole is the gatekeeper. They can determine the relative blood flow to individual organs. The arteries have no preference. They really don't control blood flow by their size. The blood flows through major arteries freely. Only reach the arterial end. The arteriole will determine this organ receive more blood or this organ receive less blood. Because of the function of the arteriole, the gatekeeper, they control blood flow. So they are the most resistance comes from, and also they are the major determinant of the arterial blood pressure. The mean arterial blood pressure is almost uniform in the arterial system. The difference is the resistance. The resistance to blood flow in each organ is determined by the arteriole that supply that organ, by vasodilation and by vasoconstriction. Can give you a schematic illustration. So we have a big fluid reservoir, that means the heart. And then we have, in this case, we have 5 outlets. So the pressure is the same. And the outlet, you can vary their resistance. The one that constricts more, that means high resistance, will receive less flow. The one that wide open will receive more flow. In different cases, number 3 outlet will receive more blood flow. So that's how our body controls blood flow toward organ or certain tissue. Under normal conditions, the body at rest. The blood distribution among different organs is a little bit different. The brain receives about 13% of blood flow. The heart receives about 4% of blood flow. The skeletal muscle receives about 20%, the skin about 9%, the kidneys about 20%, abdominal organs about 24%, and all the others about 10%. Why is that? That's controlled by the arteriole that supply different organs. So what's the mechanism to control constriction or vasodilation of this arterial blood vessel? There are 2 major controls. One we call the local control. Local control is by paracrine or autocrine factors, independent of the hormones or neurotransmitters coming from outside. The other we call the extrinsic control. That means from outside, from nervous system or from endocrine, from hormone. There are 2 major local control phenomena. One is called the active hyperemia. The second is called the flow autoregulation. The active hyperemia means in any area, if they have increased metabolic activities like muscle, you exercise, you will increase blood flow to that region. If you have increased metabolic activity in one organ, that means that organ will use more oxygen. So oxygen in that organ will decrease because it's being used. At the same time, you have more metabolic waste produced. Both these factors will cause the arterial smooth muscle to relax, and then more blood flow to supply more oxygen and to carry away the metabolic waste. So it's by demand, or by need, I would say. Second one is called autoregulation. If you have a decrease in arterial blood pressure in one organ, the blood flow to that organ will decrease. If you don't have enough blood supply, the oxygen concentration in that tissue will decrease. At the same time, the metabolic waste, they are not carried away by blood flow, they will accumulate there. So you will also increase the metabolites. And another one is you have less blood flow through there, so the blood vessels are less stretched. It's called a myogenic response. You stretch the arterial smooth muscle, the muscle will constrict. They will decrease a little bit. All this will cause the arterial dilation in that organ. More blood flow will come in, supply more oxygen, and carry away this metabolic waste. What are those metabolic waste? We mentioned oxygen. Decrease in oxygen is one thing, and all the other metabolic waste, they are increased, okay? First, carbon dioxide. So that's from the oxidative metabolism. And then you will increase hydrogen ion, mostly from anaerobic metabolism, and you have lactic acid. And also carbon dioxide will produce more hydrogen ion. And the increased concentration of adenosine, that's the product of ATP. Increased concentration of potassium because of repeated depolarization and repolarization, and increased pyrocrine factor called the eicosanoid. That's the breakdown of phospholipids. The most famous group is called the prostaglandin. And increased osmolarity. If you have more waste product, then you will have that's a breakdown of large molecule. You will increase the number of molecules in that region. So osmolarity will also increase. And there's another peptide called bradykinin. And also there's a gas called nitric oxide. It's a potent vasodilator as well. So that's the local control. Metabolic waste mostly, and oxygen. And what about the extrinsic control that comes from outside? Mostly from sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic neuron release norepinephrine that causes vasoconstriction mostly through alpha adrenergic receptor. And parasympathetic neuron, they receive acetylcholine. Parasympathetic nervous system has little innervation on arterioles, so they don't have as much effect as the sympathetic nervous system. And we have non-cholinergic, non-adrenergic, that means not acetylcholine, not norepinephrine neurons. They release nitric oxide. It's a free radical. It's very short life. It is easily converted, it's been destroyed. But it's a very potent vasodilator, so nitric oxide. In old times, it's called endothelium-derived relaxing factor, EDRF. Now we know the EDRF is nitric oxide. And then coming from hormones. Hormones, mostly the one coming from adrenal medulla is the epinephrine. The epinephrine not only acts on alpha receptor causing vasoconstriction in most blood vessels, it can also act on the beta receptor. Beta receptor mostly are located in the arteriole that supply the skeletal muscle. The skeletal muscle, the beta receptor actually causes vasodilation, so the skeletal muscle will receive more blood flow, especially during exercise. And there are many other hormones like angiotensin II, like vasopressin, they're mostly vasoconstrictors. Now we have extrinsic neural controls, we have hormonal controls, then we have local controls. They all act on arteriolar smooth muscle that cause vasodilation or vasoconstriction that change the arterial radius. Arterial, the gatekeeper for blood flow toward various organs, very important.